There we go. Thanks. Starting over. So, anyway, reading this. This section is called Dr. Ann's comment on the system of education. The chapter is called The Science of Devotion. So we were pleased to hear Dr. Ann's address at the Calcutta University Convocation on January 12th, 1957. Dr. Ann is presently the Honorable Governor of the State of Bihar. An excerpt from his speech follows. Quote, "Our youth are being brought up in a tradition of veiled contempt for religion and everything religious. Spiritualists and religious devotees are the laughing stock of the educated youth, and as the general masses are religious-minded and have great respect and reverence for such devotees and spiritualists, they feel generally disgusted with the attitude of the educated class and have no regard for them. The educated class has also no affection for the masses, whose way of life is mostly molded by religious ideas. The result is that the educated classes have not been able to produce a sufficient number of servants to work with a real missionary spirit for the amelioration of the suffering of the masses." Unquote. Dr. Ann goes on to say that the existing academic courses in schools and colleges exclude classes on religion. We have included this portion of Dr. Ann's speech, taken from a local newspaper, because we want to impress upon the reader the urgent need for introducing religious studies into the universities. Because in the past, strong objections were raised against including religious classes in the schools, they have been excluded, and now severe reactions are being seen in today's youth. I think that excluding spiritual studies from education thwarts all chances for the human mind to awaken and blossom. Because of a lack of spiritual education, today's youth are undisciplined. Students who do not pray or meditate in the early morning and again in the evening gradually become agnostic, and their minds float about aimlessly without purpose. They reject religious ideas and ethics and instead embrace logic and argument as supreme. Often they fall into the vicious grip of some unscrupulous politician. The exclusion of religious courses from the universities is the main reason one does not see nowadays a pure and sublime relationship between student and teacher. Many educators feel the need for religious education today. A few months ago, on January 18th, 1957, we had the opportunity of meeting Dr. Ann at the government house in Patna, and we had some discussions. Being a pious man, he could appreciate our spiritual topics, and offered us full support for our missionary activities, which are aimed at eradicating the demoniac mentality on a wide scale. His recent speech gives us hope of improvement. Prabhupada's mission, right? Aimed at eradicating the demoniac mentality. So possessed of perverted intelligence, the demons, rascals, and fools can never surrender to Lord Krishna. Similarly, Lord Krishna never shows them his mercy. The most magnificent incarnation of Godhead, Lord Chaitanya, repudiated the sinner, Gopal Chapal, because he was envious of the Lord's devotee. In this regard, the Supreme Lord states his opinion in the Bhagavad-Gita 4:11. Ye tamam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. Quote, "As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly." Unquote. Thus the Lord arranges for the demons to slide lower and lower into degraded species of life and suffer hell for many millions of births. In the chapter 16, the Lord says, quote, "Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. Attaining repeated birth among the demoniac species of life, O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually, they sink down to the most abominable type of existence." Yet the Supreme Lord's devotees, being more merciful than the Lord himself, are compassionate towards even the lowest demons like us. The Lord's devotee can save even those whom the Lord himself rejects. This is their unique character. Therefore, the devotees of the Lord arrange various means to save the fallen reprobate souls from perdition. In fact, they live among these spiritual derelicts to encourage them towards spiritual perfection, using any means at hand, even tricks. His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur Prabhupada wanted to open a students' hostel in London, the logic being that it was necessary to give sugar-coated pills in the form of a little sense gratification to those debauched students in order to attract them to join the path of God realization. If they so desire, powerful spiritual masters or pure devotees of the Lord can instantly deliver the entire universe and take everyone to the shelter of the Supreme Lord's lotus feet. Srila Vasudeva Datta declared to Lord Chaitanya that he was prepared to take on all the sinful reactions of every living entity in the universe and suffer eternally in hell if the Lord was willing to liberate all the living entities all at one time. The pure devotees are so magnanimous that they are always concerned about the spiritual well-being of every soul. The only way to receive the Supreme Lord's mercy is to bathe oneself in the dust of the lotus feet of such unalloyed devotees. The devotees of the Lord understand that it is Maya's influence that has spoiled the people and made them demoniac. Thus, the inherently noble disposition of the devotees leads them to think only of the demon's benefit, without a tinge of envy. The devotees are therefore known as Patita Pavana, the savior of the fallen. In fact, the devotees are more compassionate than the Supreme Lord himself. Of course, it is the Supreme Lord's grace alone that makes them more compassionate than the Lord, and by the mercy of such devotees, the lowest sinful men and women can attain to the lotus feet of the Lord. On the other hand, offending such pure devotees finishes all possibility of salvation. If one offends the Supreme Lord, only his pure devotee can save the offender. But if one offends the pure devotee, then even the Supreme Lord will not save the offender from doom. For this reason alone, pure devotees never feel offended. When Jesus Christ was being crucified, he did not blame anyone for it. Haridas Thakur was severely lashed in 22 marketplaces by the Muslim Qazis centuries. Still, he prayed to the Lord not to punish his tormentors. Lord Nityananda was wounded by 2 rascals, Jagai and Madai, yet the Lord stood his ground, bleeding profusely. He delivered the 2 notorious brothers, and thus brilliantly exemplified the title Patita Pavana. Such is the profound compassion of the pure devotees. Therefore the reprobate's only means of attaining any piety is through the association of devotees. We are looking forward to that time when the stalwart disciples of that illustrious crest jewel of all Vaishnavas, His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur Prabhupada, having received the blessings of their spiritual master, will come together again for the benediction of the whole world, and without wasting any more time, preach the message of Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji always tried to dissuade his disciple, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, from going to Calcutta, which he considered a bastion of Kali Yuga. Yet though some might think Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur disobeyed his guru's order, he preached not only in Calcutta, but in other capitals of Kali Yuga, such as London, Berlin, Bombay, Madras, and Delhi. He vehemently opposed the idea of constructing a temple in some quiet spot and leading a passive and uneventful life in the monastery. He represented perfectly the ideal of utilizing 100% of one's energy in God's service for the spiritual upliftment of humanity. A certain Gujarati friend offered to build him a temple in Villa Parle, a quiet and remote section of Bombay. He immediately refused. We had the greatest good fortune of seeing him act and preach in this way, and now it is our ill fate that after the passing away of Srila Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the exemplar of Patita-pavana, we have returned to our lowly fallen ways. Is there a glimmer of hope for our deliverance? From the ocean of loving compassion, which had been completely dammed up, Lord Nityananda cut a canal of love of Godhead and flooded the entire world. And then some persons called caste Goswamis, claiming to be the Lord's descendants, again dammed up that ocean of mercy with their malpractices of fruitive activities and rituals. Srila Bhakti-siddhanta Saraswati Thakur once more cut open the canal of love of Godhead and brought in the flood waters. And now are we, of all persons, trying once more to dam it up like the caste Goswamis? By the influence of the good association of the Lord's devotees, even a fool and rascal like me, possessed of a destructive demoniac mentality, can accumulate enough piety to become inspired to serve the Supreme Lord. By nature, children are restless and playful, so in the kindergarten they are given toys and games to interest them in learning. Similarly, a neophyte is trained to perform activities in the mood of sacrifice, and he is encouraged to worship the deities according to the scriptural injunctions. The expert Vaishnava preceptor then gradually draws him towards the platform of pure devotion by narrating the spiritual potent topics of Krishna consciousness and giving him the remnants of food offered to the Supreme Lord. These two aspects of devotional life act like medicine on the neophyte, who, like the rest of the world, is affected by the material disease. Devotional service to Lord Krishna is the living entity's eternal birthright. It is not a new subject fabricated by the human mind. A base fool thinks that devotion to Lord Krishna is merely a mundane psychological state of mind, but in truth devotional service is our eternal spiritual substance. Quote, the essence of spiritual reality, Vastu, according to Srimad Bhagavatam 112. Devotion to Lord Krishna can be invoked naturally in the purified hearts of devotees. When a disease is cured, the patient feels hungry. Similarly, when a neophyte accrues sufficient piety by associating with devotees, he feels attraction for devotional service within his heart. 4 kinds of men establish a relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. As the Lord states in Bhagavad-Gita 7.16, Chatur Vida Bhajante Mam Jana Sukritinarjuna Arto Jigyasu Artati Jnani Cha Bharatarshabha. O best among the Bharatas, 4 kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the Absolute. Unquote. One obtains another kind of piety by strictly executing his duties under the system of Varnashram Dharma, a social system containing 4 spiritual orders and 4 social orders. Learned sages have long propagated this system. As the Vishnu Purana 3.8.9 states, quote, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, is worshipped by the proper execution of prescribed duties in the system of Varna and Ashrama. There is no other way to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One must be situated in the institution of the 4 Varnas and Ashramas. The Brahmanas, the intellectual priestly class, the Kshatriyas, kings and administrators, the Vaishyas, the mercantile community, and the Shudras, menial workers, are the 4 social orders, or Varnas. If they live according to the scriptural injunctions pertaining to their particular Varna, then they can accrue piety. Similarly, if the members of the 4 ashramas, namely the brahmacharis, celibate students, grhasthas, householders, vanaprasthas, pilgrims, and sannyasis, renunciants, also act in conformity with the scriptural edicts, they too acquire immense piety. But when the ill influence of Kali Yuga corrupts this varnashram system, the human society is beset by all sorts of degradations. As a result, the living entities are punished by a variety of natural calamities caused by the illusory potency of the Lord. When the citizens abide by the rules of the king, the kingdom runs smoothly and every one is prosperous and content. But when the demoniac population of thieves, rogues, and criminals steadily increases, the kingdom is filled with chaos and terror. In search of the Supreme Lord. Varnashram religion cannot be practiced in an atmosphere of such chaos and violence. The system now being called Varnashram is actually ungodly, demoniac religion in disguise. To wear the holy thread and go through the purificatory process within this demoniac system does not result in piety. Discarding all purificatory processes and religious rites, the men of Kali-yuga vie with each other to become the biggest and the strongest. A person becomes a quote-unquote Brahmana just by slipping a holy thread over his head. Indeed, such has been predicted in the scriptures. But this does not earn him any piety. Lord Chaitanya rejected this kind of cheating Varnashrama system. Foreseeing the degraded condition of Kali Yuga, Lord Krishna hardly discusses Varnashram religion in the Bhagavad-Gita, and instead stresses the performance of work as sacrifice. Hence it is clearly understood that by the performance of sacrifice for Vishnu, the Supreme Person, he becomes satisfied, and all ill effects are eradicated. Persons afflicted by disease or other miseries are known as arta, the distressed. Commonly, a sick person depends on a doctor and medicine to cure his disease. But far-sighted scholars say that suffering of any kind is a result of sinful activities performed in the past life. Ordinary people do not understand that sinful reactions result from ignorance. This ignorance exists in manifest, prabhabdha, unmanifest, aprabhabdha, and latent, kutashta form. Manifest, unmanifest, and latent forms. There's no material means for counteracting these sinful reactions. Administering a painkiller provides temporary relief but cannot remove the root cause of a disease. Similarly, no materialistic effort aimed at counteracting sinful reactions can provide ultimate relief. One obtains maximum benefit only by surrendering to the Supreme Lord. The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion, supplies us with numerous proofs of how devotional service to the Lord destroys sinful reactions, the seeds of sinful reactions, and ignorance, the root of all sin. Hence we see that pious men depend solely on the Supreme Lord in moments of distress. It is not the prime duty of human beings to try to relieve their present sufferings, and the search in life is for that medicine, that panacea, which will cure the material disease altogether. This disease manifests itself in countless ways, such as birth, old age, disease, and death. The pious person seeks the association of saintly persons and follows the scriptures, and in this way he endeavors for his greatest good. The beginning of devotional service is the development of faith in the scriptures and the words of the saints. This faith destroys all unwanted desire in the heart and increases one's surrender to the Supreme Lord's will. Innocent inquirers are known as jnanis, those who are inquisitive. These innocent inquirers are society's hope for the future. Most intelligent and innocent young children are inquisitive. They question their parents about many things and remember the answers. When these bright young boys and girls receive proper guidance from parents and teachers who can lucidly answer their queries, they easily understand each point and gradually develop fine brains. From among these intelligent souls, those who are especially pious begin to keenly inquire about God and other spiritual topics. Others who pursue ignoble material knowledge cannot become successful in life and then end up beating the chaff. Those who are inquisitive about the self and the absolute truth, Brahman, quickly surrender to Lord Krishna and his devotees. Such surrender proves their good measure of piety brought over their previous births. Beginning with fundamental inquiries about Brahman, they swiftly become elevated. understanding the statements of Lord Krishna in Bhagavad-Gita 14:27, that he is the basis of impersonal Brahman, and begin to worship him. A person with meager piety, however, can never become a devotee of the Supreme Lord, as the scriptures state. Quote, O king, a person with little piety can never develop faith in Lord Govinda, his mercy, his holy name, or his pure devotees. Unquote. Most householders desire material gain. Nowadays especially, everyone is feeling the pinch of poverty. The ordinary man thirsts for money solely to enjoy his senses. Once a person falls into the useless company of sense gratifiers, he spends his wealth on fineries, gold, and women. Excuse me. With more wealth, he seeks adoration and distinction, and along with these, he gets mansions, cars, and so on. There is only one interest in this endeavor, and that is to enjoy the senses. Persons whose only goal in life is to gratify the senses were referred to earlier as the less intelligent fruitive workers, or karmis. If any among them happen to have some piety, then these select individuals will not merely fritter away all their time in titillating their senses, but will spend some time worshipping the Supreme Lord. Although these elite karmis do not associate with the pure devotees of the Lord, they call themselves spiritualists. Actually, they harbor the desire to gratify their carnal desires. They fail to comprehend that the Supreme Lord is known as Hrishikesha, the Supreme Master of the senses. Sometimes a jnani, a seeker of knowledge, or a practitioner of mystic yoga will also worship the Lord, but they also are merely interested in ultimately in sense pleasures. The only way these adulterated devotees can become pure devotees is if they read Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. This book is an authority on the science of devotional service. Genuine jnanis know how everything is connected to Brahman, the absolute truth. They are humble, unassuming, clean, Brahminical, and reverent toward the Guru, and they possess many other good qualities. Most often they take to the renounced order, sannyas, and lead a pure and saintly life. Yet frequently these sannyasis develop one major fault. They consider themselves God. They misinterpret the meaning of the Vedic phrase, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, and thus they cannot realize pure knowledge of Brahman. They end up defying the process. Defying the process of negation, and that finally leads to absolute monism. In this way, many jnanis who want to know the absolute truth, the Supreme Brahman, get somehow misled by the illusory potency Maya. Maya prepares her last final trap, liberation, by which she keeps the manas stranded in the ocean of material existence. She deludes them into thinking, quote, I am that, I am he, as if they were in a drunken daze. If by some chance the Mayavadi sannyasi can earn a little piety and then be graced by a pure Vaishnava devotee, as the Mayavadis of Benares were by Lord Chaitanya, then they can easily realize that knowledge of the impersonal Brahman, or the Supersoul, is incomplete. Then they can be enlightened with the transcendental knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Many sages in the past, like the great Sanaka Rishi, and many self-realized renunciants, like the famous Shukadeva Goswami, got a taste for knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead after practicing their impersonal discipline. Then they relished indescribable bliss by hearing the Supreme Lord's transcendental pastimes. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.1.9, Shukadeva Goswami says, quote, O saintly king, I was certainly situated in transcendence, yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the past. So Shukadeva Goswami says, I was certainly situated in transcendence, yet I was still attracted by the delineation of the pastimes of the Lord, who is described by enlightened verses. the point there is that he was already transcendental, but somehow activities still attracted him. So that means the activities of Krishna are transcendental, because someone who is transcendental is not attracted by anything in the material world, because transcendental pleasure is far beyond material happiness. And one can't be situated in transcendence by having any attraction to material things. So being attracted by Krishna's activities is proof that they were transcendental. When spoken by Shukadeva Goswami. So one of the stalwarts in the spiritual line of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur, has given his opinion on the 4 types of pious men who approach the Lord, namely, the distressed, those desiring material gain, the inquisitive, and those who know things as they are. He says, it's a long quote here, the distressed, those in need of material gain, and the inquisitive, these 3 are neophyte fruitive devotees. Their devotion is mixed with fruitive desires. All of them want to fulfill their desires according to their specific qualities. Finally, when they become purified, they desire to reach the divine abode of the Supreme Lord, the Vaikuntha planets. They are not like the karmis, or fruitive workers, who want to attain to the heavenly planets. As Krishna says in Bhagavad-Gita 9.25, Yanti mad yajinopimam, quote, one who worships me attains my supreme abode, unquote. The jnani, or one who knows things as they are, is the 4th type of pious man, and he is superior to the other 3 kinds. He attains a higher result because his devotion is mixed with knowledge. Like Sanaka Rishi, he attains the devotional mellow of neutrality. Moreover, because the Lord and his pure devotees shower their causeless mercy upon him, a jnani devotee, can also achieve pure love of Godhead, as in the case of Shukadeva Goswami. When devotion mixed with fruitive desires becomes freed from those fruitive desires, it is automatically transformed into devotion mixed with knowledge. The result of practicing this devotion mixed with knowledge is mentioned above. Sometimes when devotees belonging to the categories of mixed devotion develop a taste for the devotional mellow of servitude and practice it, they attain devotion and servitude mixed with awe and reverence. When their devotion becomes more purified, they attain pure devotion to the mellow of servitude, friendship, and so on, and due to their love for the Lord, they become his eternal associates. All this is clearly delineated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Here we have discussed only a few points for reference. So next section is called Lord Krishna alone is the Supreme Godhead. Everyone else is his servant. I'll read for another 10 minutes. Generally, the tendency of the jnanis is to veer towards impersonal monistic thought. Their idea of monism is this: having experienced the transience and bitterness of material existence and recognized the futility of fruitive activity, they now realize that they are the Self, Brahman, the Absolute Truth. In fact, when realization of the transcendence is perfectly complete, one perceives the impersonal aspect of the Absolute Truth in the highest spiritual abode. And when the perception of the personal aspect of the Supreme Godhead deepens, one becomes naturally attracted to the absolute transcendental beauty of Lord Krishna. As the Lord says in Bhagavad-Gita 7.19, Bahunam janmanan ante gyanavamam prapadyante vasudeva sarvamiti sarmahatma sudurlabhaha. Quote, after many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the supreme cause of all causes, and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. One who fully understands Lord Krishna never experiences any bitterness anywhere in the entire material existence. Now, wouldn't that be nice? He thrives on the knowledge of his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. Indeed, he sees everything in the world, and the world itself, in relation to Krishna. In this way, he is unlike the impersonalistic salvationists, who regard this world as merely evanescent matter. Even a wise devotee realizes that everything is engaged in Lord Krishna's service, that nothing can exist outside this relationship, independent of Lord Krishna. In other words, for the devotee, this world becomes transformed, surcharged with the existence of Krishna in everything. The illusory potency recedes into oblivion, and this world takes on the characteristics of the spiritual world, Vaikuntha. Such a pure devotee of Krishna is not selfish, thinking he alone will enjoy the benefits of surrendering to Lord Krishna's lotus feet. Rather, he tries to attract everyone in the world to Lord Krishna, and by this effort he becomes known as a Mahatma, a magnanimous soul. Such magnanimous souls are truly rare. It is seen that many so-called Mahatmas, without first realizing that this entire world is pervaded with Lord Krishna's presence, want to become the Lord and Master themselves and be served in that capacity. In this way they become fully imprisoned by his illusory potency. They become hounded and bombarded by endless desires, which finally force them to begin worshipping demigods who are inferior to the Supreme Lord. There it goes, there's an explanation right there. If someone is worshipping the demigods and is claiming to be a self-realized master, claiming to be, what's the word they use? A master, I don't know. There's some word that people are using these days about self-realized master or some perfect master. If they worship a demigod like Shiva or Kali, not self-realized, because they're engaged in inferior work. So, don't be fooled. So anyway, as Krishna says in Bhagavad-Gita 7:20, Kamestaiter hitagyana prapadyante nyadevataha tang niyamang asthaya prakritya niyata svaya. Quote, those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrenders unto the demigods and follows the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Unquote. Persons who are thus constantly tormented by unlimited desires suffer much distress, which spoil their intelligence. That is why Krishna calls them Hritagyanaha, men with lost intelligence. They become polytheists and hasten to worship various demigods. Polytheists cannot comprehend that Krishna Bhakti Kaila Sarva Karma Krita Hoya. Quote, by worshipping Lord Krishna, one automatically takes care of all other subsidiary duties. Unquote. Polytheists think that demigods like the sun god are equal to the Supreme Lord Krishna. Such men of distorted intelligence can never take shelter of Lord Krishna's lotus feet. On the other hand, lofty-minded persons with excessive intelligence are convinced that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Being. As somehow they harbor some material desires, they immediately approach Lord Krishna and pray to him. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10, we find this verse, Akama sarvakamo va, moksha kama udaradhi, tivrena bhakti-yogena yajeta purusham param. Quote, a person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of all material desire, without any material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, the personality of Godhead. Unquote. Whatever desire a person may have to fulfill, whatever desire a person may have, to fulfill it he must serve Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with intense and unfaltering devotion. This point has been discussed earlier by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. If this injunction is followed, then even those who have an aversion to Lord Krishna will eventually decide to surrender to him. People don't want to surrender. Because if you surrender to Krishna, you give up everything. And all you get is Krishna, which is everything. But you give up you have to give everything up that you thought was yours and thought you were. You have to give it all up. So people don't want to do that. And so, like devotees, they'll kind of look into the Vedas. Oh, well, we can, like you say, we'll do varnashram and then we'll that's how you please Vishnu. But Prabhupada defeated that in this book. Or devotees will, say, oh, just these rules and regulations, you just follow them and you'll become pious like that. But it's not really surrendering per se. You have to follow the instructions of the spiritual master. So anyway, and what to speak of everybody else who's just wants sense gratification. People want so much in this material world. And so it's difficult to get people even to chant, because if they chant seriously, they'll feel in themselves that they're giving everything up. They don't want to do that. So I'll read this last page and then we'll stop. Well, I'll read one more page and then stop. Lord Krishna is the supreme controller and the supreme absolute being, yet he never forces his will upon the infinitesimal living entities. Rather, it is to the living entities' own benefit to recognize that Lord Krishna alone is the supreme personality of Godhead, and that everyone else is his servitor. The sun god and other demigods perform their duties according to Lord Krishna's wishes. Indeed, this is why they are called demigods. And since a devotee of the Supreme Lord also follows his wishes, he is known as a sura, or demigod. Conversely, those who oppose the Lord's wishes are known as asuras, demons. The demigods do not possess any independent powers. In fact, they do not wield enough power even to invoke respect for themselves. That is done by the Supreme Lord. Lord Krishna's partial expansion, the Supersoul, resides in everyone's heart, and it is he who instills within one's heart faith and respect for the various demigods. The extraordinary powers seen in the sun god and other demigods are in fact the Supreme Lord's powers. Once attracted to the extraordinary powers, an intelligent person will gradually be drawn to the source of that power, the supreme energetic Lord Krishna. Worshippers of demigods is indirect, inferior, and unsystematic worship of the Supreme Lord. Those who are too attached to fulfilling their material desires are naturally more attracted to the energy than to the energetic, the source of that energy. So we'll just go from there next time. Trying to read a little bit shorter so our heads don't blow up, or I don't know. Comprehension drops off at about 50 minutes, so I'll try to read 40-minute segments and then stop there. Okie dokie. It's just a couple people here. I don't know if people have questions. I'll open up Discord and be over there. Other than that, Hare Krishna, thank you so much for listening. You can thank yourself for listening, because you're giving yourself great benefit by listening to these very wonderful words of Srila Prabhupada. His preaching here is very clear, it's very strong, it's very unambiguous. And in this world of sentimental spirituality and insincerity, hearing such strong and direct explanation and confident explanation and authoritative explanation is very, very essential for our spiritual lives. So I'm just sad that more people don't tune in to listen, but at least people in our community can do so. Let's see here. So with that, I don't know if anybody will want to come over, but here's the link. Say something to Discord on the live chat. Okay, Haribo.